After years of unanswered questions, a break in the unsolved Gilgo Beach murders out of Long Island, as officials announce a suspect is now in custody. Multiple news outlets now reporting the suspect is 59-year-old Rex Heuermann of Massapequa Park.
Rex Heuermann, I'm an architect, I'm an architectural consultant, I'm a troubleshooter, born and raised on Long Island.
Okay.
Been working in Manhattan since 1987.
The investigation that haunted Long Island for 13 years finally sees closure as authorities arrest former officer Rex Heuermann for the infamous Gilgo Beach serial slayings. DNA, witnesses, and disturbing trophies seal the case. But grieving families still seek total justice for the marginalized victims targeted. Between 1996 and 2011, the remains of 11 people were uncovered along Gilgo Beach on New York's Long Island in what became known as the Gilgo Beach serial killings. Most victims were sex workers who had advertised on Craigslist. The still unidentified killer behind the slayings is referred to as the Long Island serial killer. Our true crime story begins on a May night in 2010 with the disappearance of 24-year-old Shannan Gilbert, an escort who arranged meetings with clients online. Shannan went to see a client near Gilgo Beach, New York, and was never seen again. She made a 23-minute 911 call saying people were trying to kill her. A month later, Officer John Malia and his cadaver dog searched for Shannan without success. On December 11, 2010, human remains were discovered by Ocean Parkway, prompting more searches. Shannan's body was found in 2011, while 10 other victims were uncovered in the area over the next year. Although her death was not ruled a homicide, many believe she was the first victim of a serial killer who went on to claim 10 more lives along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach. In December 2010, the first of 11 victims was uncovered in the thick brush lining the remote shoreline. Melissa Barthélemy, Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello were the initial 4 bodies found dumped and entangled in burlap sacks. They were petite escorts in their 20s who came to Long Island for arranged meetings before disappearing. Over the next few months, 6 more sets of remains were uncovered, belonging to Jessica Taylor and Jane Doe's number 6 through number 11. All victims were strewn along the same remote area, presumably by a ruthless killer targeting young women selling escort services online. In March 2011, partial remains of Jessica Taylor were discovered along Ocean Parkway. Back in 2003, other body parts of Taylor's had been found in Manorville, Suffolk County. The next month, April 2011, police unearthed 3 more sets of remains: an unidentified female toddler, an unidentified Asian person, and Valerie Mack. Like Taylor, some of Mack's remains had also been discovered years earlier in Manorville in 2000. Additionally, 2 bodies were found in Nassau County. Karen Vergata, whose partial remains were previously discovered in 1996 on Fire Island, and an unidentified woman with a distinctive peach tattoo. This woman was later determined to be the mother of the unidentified toddler found in Suffolk County. Behind each victim was a loving family left with endless grief. The women existed on society's margins, but they were cherished daughters, sisters, and friends whose lives were viciously cut short. Their deaths unleashed fear across Long Island as the killer remained loose. In May 2011, Suffolk County authorities announced they sought one serial killer linked through DNA and geography to all 10 sets of remains along Ocean Parkway. But the investigation dragged on without breakthroughs for over a decade. Finally, in late 2022, police received a tip from a confidential informant claiming former officer Rex Heuermann directly confessed to the Gilgo Beach killings with intimate crime scene details. Crucially, the witness also provided DNA samples from Heuermann, which forensically tied him to the murders. Armed with an ironclad warrant, a SWAT team rapidly detained the suspect at his Long Island home in July 2023 without resistance. After an agonizing 13-year pursuit, justice loomed at last for the lost girls and their families. Shortly after Heuermann's arrest, actor William Baldwin revealed they were high school classmates, graduating in 1981. Baldwin described Heuermann as a mind-boggling student. Authorities began seriously eyeing Heuermann as a suspect in March 2022. a witness linked his Chevrolet Avalanche to one of the killings. Investigators said his cell phone records showed contact with 3 victims, and an email account tied to him searched the case's progress online. Court records also showed Heuermann browsed for sadistic media and images of victims. The body of evidence sealing Heuermann's fate was overwhelming and impossible to dispute. DNA tests conclusively matched Heuermann to samples taken from victims' remains and multiple unsavory beachfront crime locations where the women were sexually terrorized. DNA testing indicated a potential match between Heuermann and hair found on burlap, wrapping a victim's body, traced from pizza crust in his discarded Little Caesars box. Hair discovered on or near 3 victims also matched potential DNA samples from his wife, taken from bottles outside their home. Investigators believe Heuermann acted while his family was away. Additionally, no less than 7 independent witnesses bravely came forward to report seeing Heuermann interacting with soon-to-be victims in the final hours before they went missing forever. Their combined recollections placed Heuermann with each woman shortly before she vanished. Searches of Heuermann's properties also turned up profoundly disturbing souvenirs taken from slain victims, like blood-stained jewelry and clothing. Most alarmingly, police discovered one victim's hunting knife still coated with her dried blood in Heuermann's bedroom, kept years later as a perverse trophy. The trove of DNA-certified evidence from 4 women left no doubt detectives had apprehended a merciless killer. Heuermann specifically targeted vulnerable sex workers to satisfy deeply alarming compulsions of control and domination through violence. By preying on society's most marginalized, he disguised his monstrous brutality for over a decade. Heuermann's highly anticipated 2023 murder trial featured an avalanche of damning science, witness statements, psychologist profiles, and documentation of Heuermann's movements and internet activity, proving him guilty. The defense tried hapless attempts to dismiss DNA proof and claims of a forced confession, but expert testimony thoroughly demolished their arguments. After brief deliberation, the jury unanimously convicted Heuermann on 4 first-degree murder counts in early 2024. For family and friends of the lost girls, who endured endless, unanswered tragedy, the verdict marked long overdue justice. Their sisters and daughters were never coming home, but their killer had been caught and would pay a heavy debt. However, questions still loom about additional slain victims remaining undiscovered after Heuermann evaded consequences for so long. Perhaps in death, the lost girls can remind us to keep fighting brutality against society's most neglected. Each forgotten voice deserves to be heard and mourned. Every forgotten life warrants protection. Shannan, Maureen, Melissa, Megan, and too many more suffered because we ignored their humanity. Their stolen safety led to suffering families who won't forget. Now we must finish pursuing full justice while honoring the unfinished stories of the lost girls, so this never happens again. Their lasting legacy rests in that mission. Let's wrap up how police finally caught notorious Gilgo Beach serial killer Rex Heuermann after a 13-year pursuit. His conviction brought overdue justice for grieving families of the lost girls, murdered from 2003-2011, along the remote Long Island shoreline. But more advocacy remains to commemorate forgotten victims as we learn from this enduring tragedy. If you liked this tragic crime story video, be sure to like and subscribe to Crime Chronicles for more unsolved cases, serial killers, mysterious disappearances, murder investigations.